Have you ever watched a game trailer and thought, how did they make that look so incredible? While simultaneously wondering why your own trailer attempts just feel flat and forgettable? Well, my friend, the answer is sitting with us today, and his name is Derek Lieu. Now, he is basically the LeBron James, the Michael Jordan of trailer editors, if you will, and he is the secret weapon behind countless successful indie games. And trust me when I say this, you are familiar with his work, even if you don't know the name. Now, Derek has this unique talent for finding the soul of a game and translating it into 60 seconds of just pure enjoyment, and we're going to be harnessing that knowledge on this episode as we cover the fundamentals that most developers just never consider. These are things like the psychology behind the critical first few frames, why genre establishment can make or break viewer retention, how to prepare assets that actually help instead of hindering your editor, and the feedback techniques that you can use to lead to a trailer that you are truly proud to share everywhere. So let's decode the mystery behind what makes a trailer truly special and convert viewers into players. Welcome to Freaking Cool Indies. Well, Derek, thank you very much for coming on Freaking Cool Indies. Again, you, in my eyes, you are the Michael Jordan of game trailers. I know that's, I've kind of pitched that to you in my initial email, but I truly, honestly believe it. When going over your work and your history, it is nothing shy of incredible. So I just wanted to, I'll just start there because, again,
Thank you.
amazing games, something that you should truly be proud of. And again, to have the LeBron and MJ on is a personal huge win on my side. But for today's conversation, I do want to talk about what it's like working with a trailer editor and kind of having the conversation, one part being your stories and your experiences, and then the other part is providing tangible takeaways for the audience who might be working not just with yourself, but just trailer editors in general. So what is the ideal moment in a game's development timeline that a dev should be beginning this process? Like, how complete does a game need to be in order for you to start working your magic?
Sure. It depends. Tell me if you've heard that before. Because every single game is different. Certain games, you can get away with very little before you can make a trailer. And some other games, you need a whole bunch of stuff. If your game has a really strong hook, then it can take just a few shots. If it's a game that is treading in more familiar waters, where it's on, say, a popular genre like Metroidvania or a tactical game or a puzzle platformer, something like that, that is not in itself very hooky, it can take a lot more to convince people that yours is different and special in some way. Because if your game is, say, Legend of Zelda inspired, like classic Super Nintendo version, it can take a lot of time to make what people could unfairly call a reskinned version of that game. And if you don't have those clear hooks in there, then it can take much longer. But there's a game called Summerhill, which it's not out yet. It's about sheep herding. Their announced trailer is just one shot. It's the character goes onto this field with their dog, and it's this sort of idyllic cliffside country setting. Pardon my cat Ebby. And the shot is just them herding some sheep back to where they started at the beginning, and you also see like the beautiful landscape in the background, and that's it. And it works. Of course, if you have like a sequel or something like that, like I did the announced trailer for Among Us VR, there was literally only one room finished for that trailer, and that's what we showed. But it's Among Us, so of course it has all that prior knowledge built up in there anyway. So it's totally, absolutely an exception. But I think it's never too early to start talking to a trailer editor. I did a whole GDC talk about thinking about your game's trailer when you're just prototyping, because it forces you to really ask some of those hard questions, like what are these special things about this game that if I put them into a 60-second trailer or 90-second trailer would make it stand out. And if you don't have those things, or you can't think about those early on, then it is useful to try to find a way to discover those things or create those things. Very practically speaking, though, you should really just contact a trailer editor a month in advance at least. Uh, I get booked 3 months in advance at this point often, but I know not everyone has as like a big of a inbox as me, or not big as inbox, as many things coming into my inbox as me. But we all juggle multiple projects typically, even if it's just two. It's good to be able to know what our schedule is going to be in advance. And if you come to us saying, hey, I got into Wholesome Direct, they need it in 2 weeks, then unless we just absolutely have nothing, even then it's a rush, because it's good to have time to mull things over, to get feedback, maybe if we need some dev support of some sort, or maybe the composer needs to customize one of the music cues, they need time to do that work too. And if you give us very little time, then rush fees. If the freelancers knows what they're doing, then rush fees. But yeah, it really depends. And I've also just been contacted by developers as far as a year in advance saying, okay, we're thinking about making an announced trailer next year. What should we be shooting for as far as in number of environments, player animations? So, for example, I did an announced trailer recently for Mandrake, the new game from Fail Better Games. And they contacted me last year saying, how much do we need? And I took a look. Or I don't remember if they had anything to show me at that time, but I talked to them, and I just told them straight up, you should have at least 3 player animations in addition to walking, and 2 to 3 environments or so. And because so that game is sort of a take on the cozy genre, and the reason I said 3 to 4 animations is because we needed to cover enough familiar ground that the fans of the cozy genre would recognize that this is in that space, even though it's doing its own thing. Because if it's a game that has a shot where, or if it's a trailer that has a shot of fishing, like the original, like Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening has fishing in it, but it's like a really small part of that game.
Yeah.
So we needed to show enough of those conventions so then that people could easily compartmentalize this game, put it in its bucket of, okay, this is in a space that has that are the games that I enjoy playing, and I got that. Now I need to see what's special. But without those few things like fishing, planting, harvesting, chopping wood, then it might be a little bit less clear.
At this point of your career, are you basically like, okay, you get a cozy game and you just have your mental checklist of like, all right, these are the 3, 4, 5 things that we need to show. If we have a Metroidvania, like these are the 3, 4, 5 things to show. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing a lot of the trailers, although formulaic, like depending on the genre, you want it to follow a similar timeline so that people can follow along. That's, oh, I've seen this before, even if it's different. I have a familiarity as a viewer of this trailer.
Yeah, I don't think I have it super spelled out, but I definitely think about the genres and then think about what are those anchors of that genre that will make people recognize it. So Metroidvania, different powers, unlocking doors, a big map. Those are, that might be it. But because like it could be side scrolling, it could be third person, but those are some of the big pillars or the big anchors of that genre. And then cozy games have their own thing, which it's not like if I get a cozy game or Metroidvania, those shots are going to exist at the exact same time for all those trailers that I make for that genre. But I will still want to have those conventions in there while showing off the things that are special and unique about that game, just so then that people can recognize what they're seeing. And then once they can recognize what they're seeing, then they can see what's different.
So from the sounds of it, it really depends, and like you said at the beginning, but it depends on what is the purpose of this trailer, whether it's a announcement trailer, which obviously not as much of the game is going to be ready as opposed to the first, like the date reveal trailer, which is most likely further along the timeline. But what are some common assets that are either typically missing or just like poorly prepared when it comes to giving you that then you have to go back and either scrape for again, or just things that you've seen in general that you would get the audience to spend a little bit more time on?
Right. So, what are the things that a developer often doesn't have ready for me when we start making a trailer?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's funny you say brief because that's a thing that people usually don't have.
What, really? Okay.
I can always tell when someone has a good marketing person when they send me either a brief or even just an email where everything's laid out really nicely.
Very interesting. Okay.
That's the exception, I would say. Depending, but there are some bare essentials like, of course, you need. I'm just going to crib from my own blog post. If you just type into Google Derek Lieu game trailer editor asset list, you will get this. So I'm just quickly in order. So Slack, Discord, or group chat invite. That's just for communication. Of course, we need the build. We need debug options. We need music files. Sometimes sound effects files are useful to have because in the game they can be layered on top of each other and very chaotic. So sometimes it's good to have the actual files so then that I can send something really clean to my sound mixer and things can be brought up or down as needed. Scripts and dialogue files often help. So usually that's a giant spreadsheet or maybe ink files if you're using ink, something like that. Sometimes it's in screenplay format even. Marketing, copy, and messaging, Steam page, store, draft. That's always very helpful because I want to be able to have the trailer integrate well into all your other marketing efforts. I don't want me to be this like solo guitarist running amok while the band's doing this own thing over here. Fonts, studio logos, style guides if those exist, end slate information, what's your call to action, what are logos that you have required for your platforms, which, I mean, anyone with lots of experience will know a lot of that already. We need to know your rating information, including your descriptors, and need to know all your platform versions. But to more directly answer your question, just having that marketing copy or messaging pillars, that is a big help. But again, I don't expect that because a lot of indies just don't think about marketing to the degree that certainly marketing people think about, which makes sense. But that is often the thing that when I have it, I'm like, ooh, this is so nice.
Yeah, I'm honestly really surprised that it's the exception and not the rule.
Oh,
I actually would have figured that most people who's spending the time and the money to hiring someone would go and do that.
I think I've talked. I know a lot of marketing friends, and I think marketing has a marketing problem because a lot of people think that marketing is only advertising. Yes. Or it's only sleazy when it's so much more. And I think that people don't know what marketing deliverables are, whereas a trailer is a very tangible thing. I have this game, I need a 90-second trailer that's going to go on my Steam page, and then that's going to live there forever. Whereas, of course, the things that marketing people do also live on the Steam page, but it just, something about it, I think to people just doesn't feel as real. It's like, oh, it's just a bunch of words. But I actually think the words part is way harder than trailers in lots of ways. Because with trailers, you get a lot for free, in a sense. Because you can capture footage from your game and cut it together into a montage. Whether or not it'll be good is another thing. But still, even if your editing is bad, we're still looking at gameplay footage, hopefully. Whereas with marketing, like that good capsule description, those words don't come for free at all. There's nothing in your game, unless you already have like a really good writer, that comes for free that you can just like take from the game and just like put onto your store page. So I think it's actually way harder in my opinion. But I'm an editor. I'm not a copy editor. So maybe copy editors say like, well, trailer editing's so much harder.
Yeah, of course, both disciplines. But honestly, this is the reason why freaking cool indies exist, and exactly what you say is marketing has a marketing problem, right? People hear that word and it's cringy, it's sleazy. It's like, oh, I'm a game dev, I'm not a marketer. But again, it's a very necessary aspect to getting your game both created and seen. And it's at the end of the day, in my eyes, it's all about just getting your game in front of the right audience and getting them excited about it.
And making sure that once you have them in front of you, what you have to say to them is very clear and understandable and interesting.
Yeah, and in the language that they want it to be in, right? If you're creating a cozy game, you want cozy language, right? You want to invite people into that world and that environment. But again, that's awesome. And although we're going to be talking through a lot of stuff today, but all of Derek's assets, his template brief, everything will be in the description below. I was joking with him yesterday, and again, I've never worked with or met someone who has answered every question that I actually could have actually had about trailers. So yeah, I'll be posting a ton of different resources that Derek's already created, different talks. And if for anyone listening who does also want to work on their own trailer, Derek has a fantastic course. So we'll get to that a little bit later in the talk as well. But continuing on, Derek, when a dev is researching editors, kind of beyond obviously just looking at trailers of their past work, is there any like red flags that you might have them be looking out for that could potentially coming down the line, whether it's the communication style or just the process of that trailer editor? Because again, you go on Fiverr, you go on all these different websites, and there's a lot of people who say, oh, I edit game trailers, but they range in quality, I'm quite sure.
Red flags are difficult to spot, I think, but because when you just see a portfolio of just a whole bunch of thumbnails and you click on the trailers and you watch them, you have no idea what this person's like to work with. What I would consider something of a red flag is if you watch all the trailers and they feel kind of the same. If they feel like title card gameplay, that's like a really, really basic way of making a trailer that focuses often on the back of the box features of that game, like 16 boss battles and 10 biomes and 5 different weapons. It's a very reductive, not interesting way to talk about a game. And I feel like if you hire someone on Fiverr who says, I can make you a trailer in a day for $50, that's kind of the only way they can really do it that quickly, because it's just you can just ask the developer, like, what are the things in your game? What are the features? And you just, okay, here's a feature, I'll show it. And then here's a feature, I'll show it. And that won't usually get to the emotion or the experience of playing the game that really envelops what the whole game is. So that would probably be a red flag. I mean, frankly, charging that low is probably a red flag unless they're living in a place where that money would actually be enough for them to live off of. Like, if they're charging $50 for a trailer and they're living in Los Angeles, then I mean, that's a problem for them too. But there are certainly places where that money can be worth a lot more, so it would make sense. So I would look at where they're based, but just look at their work and see if the trailers feel really bespoke to that game. And especially if you can find someone who's worked on some games that you've played, because then you can watch the trailer and know for yourself, like, oh, I've played this game. Does this trailer live up to that, or tease at that in a way that I think feels authentic? So that's a good way to do. But the odds of that happening aren't necessarily super high. But that's one thing you can look at. If they talk about their process on their website, that's great. So case studies, something that will give you a view into their thought process, that's always very helpful. But not a lot of people do that because it takes a lot of time, and not everyone's a writer, and it's people are busy. writing stuff in addition to the job is a lot of work.
Again, feel free to jump in, but I also think if you're in between, let's say, 2 developers, for the listeners out there, finding if there's a trailer that you like, I think you can also reach out to that game developer. Hey, how is it working with that person? Would you recommend them? Would you work with them again? And I think that might be also a good way of just narrowing down the field of all the people out there who are trying to vie for that business.
Yeah, that's the best way to just actually know.
Awesome.
They can find out how much they charged and stuff like that.
Awesome. How much of the trailer's vision belongs to the developer as opposed to yourself or the individual that they hire for the trailer?
I mean, hopefully you can satisfy both. And also, I think a lot of times the developer, if they're smart, they're hiring someone because they don't know what the vision is in a way. Mm-hmm. Like the developers of Mandrake, Fail Better Games, one of them told me after working on me with the trailer that they felt like they have a clearer vision of their own game after seeing the trailer, and also a clearer way of communicating what their game is, because I've just spent, I don't know, a month or two with them just taking basically as the only finished parts of the game, finished looking parts of the game, and putting into this 60-second trailer. And everything else in that game, if you just move the camera over a little bit, it's like gray box. Yeah. So it's ultimately the clients, but I think that a good trailer editor will consider all the things that the client wants and what makes the game important to them, what are their communication goals, and give them the version that satisfies them and they feel creatively fulfilled having made that trailer too. Because what you don't want is a scenario where the developer is so rigid that the editor just ends up feeling like a button pusher, where they're just thinking like, oh, I'm just here because I know Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, and you're just telling me maybe exactly the music beats to cut on. Like, what's the point in that? So I know I've very, very, very rarely had times where I felt like, oh, they don't care about my creative input at all.
Yeah, like as someone who fills out this brief, maybe then they have like, oh, this is what I envision my trailer being. But then it is with any creative collaborative effort, there is always that give and take. And especially if I'm hiring you as someone who is the professional, it's how much of that do I give up in terms of getting that the best possible.
Yeah, and it's
like,
not even
output.
Thinking about what you're giving up. It's just being open to the possibilities, because creative people will bring something to the project that you didn't think about, and that's why you work with them. So like I was listening to a podcast with Ashley Birch done by Katie Sackhoff, and they're talking about actors, of course, and they're talking about actors and AI and how you work with actors, because if you had 10 actors in one line of dialogue, you get 10 different reads at least. And probably the majority of them would be versions that you wouldn't have thought of. And it might change it put it in a different direction, or make you think about the line differently. So it's good to have unified goals. Like, we need this trailer to communicate X, Y, and Z. But how you get there, I think, should be very flexible.
Yeah. And if someone provides you a brief and you're not happy with not that you're not happy with some of the answers, but they're maybe a little vague. Are you working with them collaboratively of like, hey, can we go over this again, or maybe take another stab at this question here? This is more what I'd like to see.
I mean, usually if someone says to me about their game, like, oh, this is what the trailer should be about, X, Y, and Z, and I'll look at it and think like, this part here is actually not that interesting. Like, I just had a consult the other day, and they listed out some of their hooks, or at least what they thought were hooks, and one of them was the game's made in Godot, and I just politely laughed, or maybe inadvertently laughed, or just said like, no, don't, that's not a hook. Don't do that. Okay, no one cares.
First splash screen.
Yeah, no, don't. So, I will not be afraid to shoot something down if I think that's going to take us in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. And it's always helpful to have a starting point, but I will, of course, play the game myself and then say, yes, this works. This works. This one probably maybe not, or maybe this is a secondary sort of thing. This isn't the most important part of the trailer. This can be second fiddle to these things, which are much more important. By the way, did you consider putting this thing over here? Because this is actually really cool and I think is really hooky. And sometimes they wouldn't have thought of that other thing that I pulled aside because for whatever reason, usually it's just because they've been working on this game for so long or they're so close to it, they can't just see it objectively by any stretch of the imagination.
Do you get that, or do you feel that a lot of developers who get a little bit too close to their game and they have a hard time of kind of taking 1 to 2 steps back to look at the bigger picture?
I don't think it's often that they have a hard time doing it. It's more that when I show them something from my perspective, they just go like, "Oh, yeah, cool."
Yeah.
Oh, and like it suddenly just clicks. I think that's very common.
But how does your process, or how does the trailer change in your eyes if you're doing something for a Nintendo Direct as opposed to something that's living on a Steam page?
If it's going to be at a live event of some sort, like an online showcase or the Game Awards, then you can be more mysterious with your intro. You can have a slower burn intro because you have a captive audience. So you can just be a little bit more coy with your gameplay. Not too coy, but because you know that they're not just going to flip away or change the channel or whatever, then you can sort of luxuriate a little bit more in that. But Steam page, just got to get going. Chris Zukowski did the study. People start clicking ahead when there's no gameplay because they're using this not as a trailer viewer. They're using this as raw gameplay viewer in their hopes. And sometimes they don't even get that. Maybe it's a cinematic trailer is the first one in the carousel. Like, oh, no, this is gameplay. But we've been trained from like AAA games and some indie games copying AAA games often as far as their trailers. Like, oh, well, you start with the cinematic part and then you put the gameplay at the second part. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. You can start with gameplay. So yeah, Steam page, YouTube, social media, you got to hook people. And it doesn't necessarily mean that sort of blunt force movie trailer before the trailer style thing where it's like the trailer starts now, John Wick 4. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be like a slow opening that is one shot as long as it's giving people what they want. So I did the release date trailer for Deliver at All Costs. It's this sort of isometric game where you play this delivery guy, and it's very much old school GTA style where you get a mission and then you go deliver the thing, which is like a swordfish, or you're delivering a bunch of balloons or something like that. But in this game, everything is destructible in the game. Virtually everything is destructible. So you can just imagine a truck in a like kind of realistic, maybe slightly stylized graphics, and you just drive through a building and it just like crumbles. So for the opening of that trailer, it's just one shot where it starts off with a radio announcer saying like, "We deliver is hiring. Go down to our address at this place and sign up." And then meanwhile, while this is happening, you see the player leaving their apartment, going to their car. And as soon as the radio ad is done, they start the car, and then they accidentally back up into the building behind them, and it crumbles. And then rather than going forward like a sensible person, they just keep on reversing through more buildings and more buildings till they bump into a gas tank, which blows up. Then they go forward, and they bump into these other things. So, like, that's a hooky opening, I think.
Yeah.
And it's giving people what they want, which is like real gameplay, which at first blush is like, okay, top-down game. We got a character running around, cars, got it. Oh, stuff just falls over when you. Oh, okay, and it's going. You want the hook to have like that emotional journey of like, okay, got it. Oh. Like that, and that first little bit of like, okay, got it. Like that's the part where I'm always telling people, when you're making a trailer, try to make sure that you establish the genre space as soon as possible, and then you put the hooky part. So in this case, it's like, okay, top-down, third-person not character action game, that's like Devil May Cry, but like a game where you see a character moving around. Yep. As soon as that first frame comes up, that's already answering so many of your questions. Like, okay, I've played games like this where you play a little guy walking around this 3D map, and then you have cars that you drive. I was like, okay, got it. And then as soon as that happens, then you're starting to ask, okay, but what's different? And then he backs up into the building, it destroys. Like, okay, that's different. And then it's okay, I'll pay attention more. Got it. And I didn't do it from going like, the trailer starts now, deliver at all costs. And I could have done a montage of buildings blowing up and everything or crumbling down. That could have been a totally valid way to do it, but I thought it'd be more fun to do it in this one shot.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think you touched upon something that I wanted to get your input on, but you said just the first frame, which again, very short period of time for someone to recognize it and be able to frame it in their own mind of, okay, I get this, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I see a lot of, let's call them bad trailers or not as good trailers, where they would put that out into 10 frames, 20 frames, kind of like spending a little bit too much time setting that initial intent. Do you agree with that? Is that something that you also see?
Let's be clear. 10 frames is still a fraction of a second. I'm not that draconian about this.
Let's say 1 second.
I'd say
30 seconds.
if you can establish the genre in the first 5 to 10 seconds, you're ahead of the crowd. 5 seconds be great. If you can do it one shot, even better. But don't feel the stress of like, God, 5 seconds, the most important part of the trailer. I see a lot of trailers where they're cutting really fast, I think out of insecurity, and they've absorbed this knowledge like, oh, TikTok generation has no patience. I gotta cut really fast. And what they're doing often is they're cutting too fast, so fast that there's not enough time to absorb what's actually happening in the shot. And then it becomes sort of Michael Bay chaos syndrome where you kind of just everything becomes this like blur where like I don't even know what's happening. So you need to establish like a bedrock of basic information about the game before you can start cutting faster. Because just any trailer that starts playing in front of someone, it could be anything. It could be a really well-established genre. It could be a mix of 2 genres. It could be a mix of 3 genres. And until we have at least one shot that establishes the idea, and then another one, maybe 2, if it's like, the way you should think about this is, first time someone sees something that says something, but you don't know exactly what it is until maybe you get some confirmation. So if I have a second shot, like, okay, so let's use deliver at all costs again. Maybe this is a quirky game where there's only one section that's isometric GTA style. If I show one shot, okay, I think I got it. If I have a second shot where it's also the same camera angle, more driving, it's like, okay, pretty sure this is exactly what I think it is. And by the time you have 3 shots of that, okay, yeah, it's just going to be like that. But it could be a very unconventional game where like one section's like pixel art, one section's first person perspective, one shot is some other genre. So you need to give people just that baseline of information of like, okay, what space are we playing in? And then once we got that, then you can start saying, okay, and this is what I'm doing differently. And then at that point you can start cutting faster. But we need that baseline is like really important because like this is what we're comparing everything to after we know what it is. So I'm always using the analogy of ice cream is once I know you have an ice cream shop, great. I need to know more because I got an ice cream shop I already like right now and your place is 30 minutes away. What's going to bring me to your ice cream shop? And if you start saying things like, well, it's cold, it's made of cream, of different flavors, I'm like, okay, keep coming. It's a cat cafe. Oh, okay, I'm driving half an hour, no problem. And a lot of games sit in that space of, well, frankly, not even establishing that it's an ice cream shop. You have cinematic shots of the gameplay with debug camera, or it's like, camera tracking shot through the environment, logos, of course, where it just doesn't answer that basic question. But like once we know, okay, ice cream shop or Metroidvania, then we have all the things that we've played before, and now we're going to compare it to, because that comparison between the conventional and what you're doing, that creates the additional ideas in your head about I could see. So it's like, oh, okay, so if it's a Metroidvania where you do this, I wonder what it's like when you unlock doors in this one, or I wonder how that would translate into the boss battles, because you're thinking about, okay, because once you've established a hook, then we're going to start speculating about everything that we know from previous games in that genre and thinking like, oh, what would their version of that be? What would their version of that be? But if we don't know what the genre is, then we can't do any of that. And we're just trying to figure out what kind of game is this?
To be in. At the end of the trailer, someone's like, I don't know what game this is. It looks cool or not cool, but I just don't know what game this is.
And you want to both, I mean, some people might disagree, but I think you both want to attract your audience and push away people who are not your audience, because you don't want to waste people's time. So that's why I don't like when there's a trailer that's there was this Alien game where it was cinematic. Oh, it's a tactical game. It's a tactical game. Mm-hmm. It's so that tells me, yeah, it's a tactical game. I don't think you'll watch it unless it's cinematic and fancy. Oh, by the way, it's a tactical game. And, I'm sure to the tactical fans, they're like, hey, I'm right here. Mm-hmm. I like these games. I don't need the cinematic. You show me it's a tactical game. Are you embarrassed of me? And because this cinematic part is let's target the non-tactical game players. And then his tactical game is oh, we'll give you a little bit. So it's this part here reads to me like just trying to just go broad, and by doing that, showing that you kind of are embarrassed of your audience in a way.
Yeah. For the tactical example there, would you recommend splitting them into having just a cinematic trailer and then obviously your tactical trailer?
Yeah, I think that it's good to get the genre out as soon as possible. It's okay depending to start with sort of cinematic, but to get to the gameplay as soon as possible. And I think that it's good to use cinematics as spice or accents. So if you're having this moment in an XCOM type game, then have the triumphant moment where they defeat this enemy. That could be a cinematic angle, because maybe it's an angle that doesn't happen in the game. And we know what is, and just makes it more dramatic when you have a cool angle. Or even better, you just have really, really good gameplay and then use your cinematic camera angles within that gameplay. Again, still kind of spice, but just if you're living outside of gameplay for too long, I think people start getting really antsy and suspicious, because that's how games that are just actually bad would make their trailers. Years ago, there was this really low budget Rambo game where if you watch the trailer for that, it's you could fit the amount of sort of real gameplay moments into a few seconds. And that always feels really sus. And you might be doing that because you can, and you can make really cool cinematic shots, but you might be inadvertently making people suspicious of you. It's not a lot of cinematic gameplay in this. Why are they not showing the good stuff? And it could be completely benign reasons. We could, it looks really cool and it looks great, but you could just be inadvertently putting yourself in that space. People, they hide their gameplay a lot when it's not good. Is that what they're doing here?
I feel like the game industry as a whole kind of lost the trust of a cinematic trailer many years ago.
Yes.
I remember growing up
and gameplay.
When I was a kid growing up at E3, half of the trailers were just cinematic trailers, and again, as a kid, you're this is the coolest thing ever. But then it's typically releasing 4 years later, so you're also okay. But then by the time the game comes, it's the original cinematic trailer and the actual game is just two totally separate entities.
Yeah, and often just through completely non-nefarious reasons, because making games is really hard, and games can change so much within the space of months, never mind years. Mm-hmm. So I think that there are a lot of unfortunate scenarios that I think were completely not malicious in any way. So people often cite like Watch Dogs, didn't look anything like the E3 trailer where it had all these like beautiful rain effects and reflections and the light bloom or something like that. Which that sucks. But there's no developers working on that game be like, we're going to put in everything that we can and then take it from them. That's just like, it's more likely, in fact, I'm sure, it's just a bunch of developers being like, God damn it, we really wanted to put in those things, but it just wouldn't run.
Was it Watch Dogs? Was Watch Dogs the one that had the puddle controversy?
No, that's Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, okay, yeah. It's like, come on.
Yeah, I think that, they're way better about it now. There's still some exceptions, but like, Watch Dogs was over 10 years ago. Yeah. And if you watch this, like the Star Wars Outlaws trailers or the Avatar trailers, like they're fine. There's nothing in there that really looks that controversial. That like they're really, if people have to go back to Watch Dogs like every single time they want to say like, oh, game trailers are dishonest, then that tells you there's like over 10 years of trailers with no controversy or very little controversy. The only other one is like, Cyberpunk had big development problems and, it's multi-platform across generations. So that's a whole other thing. But that's like small handful. Like there's a whole bunch of other game trailers out there just doing just fine with their trailers.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the conversation, but I wanted to take a quick second just to tell you about today's sponsor, me. Well, actually, more specifically, the 7-day marketing foundations challenge that I have put together. So if you've gotten this far in the podcast, then I know that you are serious about becoming an indiepreneur and building a strong marketing foundation around your game. So I have a challenge for you. Give me 20 minutes a day for the next 7 days and I will give you a marketing system that actually works. Each day builds upon the last, and throughout the 7 days, we're going to be doing things like defining your ideal player, crafting a killer pitch, optimizing your Steam page, and building an outreach list, as well as sending some emails with some proven and provided templates. Look, there's no overwhelm, just small daily wins that will compound into real results. So if you want to learn more, check out the link below in the description, and I cannot wait to cheer you on. Besides that, have a great rest of your day, and let's get back to the episode. Derek, I want to jump into the feedback side of things now. So we're working with the client. We have our brief ready to rock, and it's time for you to go and send over, like the first draft of it all. What is the mindset that the dev should have, or kind of what's the purpose of the first draft? Are you just saying like, hey, this is my vision so far. Do we want to pivot or move forward? Or is it like, hey, here's a trailer that's 80% done and before I kind of finalize everything?
No, it depends on how the person works. So for me, I tend to send drafts really early, and sometimes it could have just music and a bunch of text and title cards describing what's going to go in there, because I don't want to spend a lot of time getting, like you said, like 80% and then having them decide this is totally not the right direction, because that's a lot of work to throw away. And because I work with indies, I have the luxury to do that. If I was an agency, absolutely cannot work that way at all, because if you're working on the Indiana Jones game, you have so many layers of stakeholders that a lot of them just have awful rough cut eyes. And you have so little time to show them anything. They're really busy. So you basically have to show them something that it looks 100% as much as it can. Because you don't want them to send back feedback like, why is there time code on this? Is that going to be on the finished version? It's like, of course, it's not going to be on there. But with indies, I tend to send things pretty early on, so then that we can see if this feels right. And if it feels great at the beginning, it's going to feel even better when it's all polished. Yeah. I will say for feedback, the best thing that developers can do as far as feedback goes is just one stream of feedback, okay? You talk amongst yourselves and give one stream of feedback. And also, if I gave you a Frame.io link, use the Frame.io link. Because if you give me a timecode number that's not ending in frames, it could be the difference between 1 or 2 shots. And the Frame.io link is there, so then I know exactly the shot that you're talking about, and I can just check it off one by one. But if you get the trailer, give it to the team, and say, okay, everyone, get into Slack. let's feedback this trailer. Then you give all these things. A lot of them contradict each other, and maybe one person's a creative director, one's an art director, one's a sound designer. It's like okay, whose feedback is more important? Like I don't want to do that. Okay, I don't want to sort out your office politics or whatever. So like one stream of feedback, it's so helpful.
Will you go back and tell a client who maybe has 5 people who are all kind of
I tell them at the
saying,
beginning.
Look, I need one top person or one person to be delivering
and
this.
it might like sometimes some things like sneak in here and there because I know creating unified feedback could mean like another meeting on their side, which everyone hates meetings. But I tell them at the beginning, like, please, one stream of feedback as much as you can, and this will work so much quicker.
Yeah. And do you have any golden rules of feedback? Let's call them golden rules of feedback. Like, just if a dev comes to you and says, "Hey, like the pacing is off," but is there a better way to be putting these things? Is there kind of just I don't know, insights that you have about how someone should be approaching their feedback as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's good to think about things in terms of your common goals. So if you set your common goals at the beginning, like this game should feel like, or like Skin Deep, one of our things is this is Die Hard in space. Like they've been using that pitch for a while, and it's goofy. It's goofy, but it takes itself seriously. It doesn't like wink, wink, nudge, nudge about its jokes. It just treats things straight, that you're an insurance agent saving cats on a spaceship. So if the feedback is related in terms of the goals, like this isn't communicating this thing that we agreed on, that's very useful, because then that's like a big problem that's a thing that we can address, as opposed to if you're like, this doesn't feel right, or like make it more cinematic. Like that's a terrible note. I can go longer. That something that's like vague like that, then that's not useful. And I mean, like if it's like towards the end of the process, then I have more space for like really small tweaks. Like can you like cut like 2 frames? I think there's something just sneaking in there. Like, okay, yeah, no problem. But if it's like a list of like 5 frames from this, or 10 frames from this, like this is not how we do things. It should be like, this montage feels a little lethargic. This game mechanic isn't clear. And usually it's very simple things like, oh, this texture is broken. Can you recapture this? That's usually how it works. But it's just like with games where you don't want to go into Steam forums and read all the comments and just start making the changes that people suggest. You have to sometimes get to the root of what the problem is. And like, I forget which FPS it was. It was either Halo or something else, where like the feedback was like, this shotgun's not powerful enough. Like, and just do more damage. And they just made the sound effect like stronger. And like, oh, it's so much better now. It's like, yeah.
I love and hate games so much for so many different reasons. That's so awesome though. But again, that's all that it doesn't. They don't actually need to do more damage. It just needs to sound cooler.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Derek, just to also set expectations when it comes to, so we talked about the first draft, but how many drafts are you typically seeing between, first draft, which is more, let's call it storyboard, all the way to final product? Are you...
It really varies, unfortunately, so I can't really give a straight answer. Some people put into their contract number of revisions, like rounds of revisions, and I know a lot of people want to do like 2 or 3. And I'm not that strict in my contract that I use with developers, so it's tough to say. I mean, like with Skin Deep, I sent them. It's also, here's also how you should think about versions too, because like in the agency model, where like first version 1 is like that's a complete version. Yeah. Once you go past that, then it's like, oh, either different direction or messing around with version 1. Whereas everything that's before the final version or the final version that can be shipped, I call it like work in progress 1, work in progress 2. So it's more like a game where it's like, all the integers or the numbers or decimals that happen before 1. So there's often a lot of those, but those are just like kind of like work files for me. So I don't know actually how many it ends up being, but like for Skin Deep, like the first like really solid version I sent to them, they're basically like, yeah, it's good. I was a little bit worried. I'm like, oh, sure, there's nothing to change. And like they sent me like maybe like 3 notes, and they're like really really minor notes. So that's atypical. But usually, if things go past that finished version, at least for me, they're just like pretty small tweaks. Because hopefully we got the really big problems out of the way up in the lead up to that like version 1.
Just to talk about contracts, because I know this is a big part of the overall process, but could we talk about just what is a healthy relationship look like regarding contracts, payments, like keeping things professional? When do you typically are nailing down, okay, this is how many revisions we're doing, this is the payment date here? What does just like that look like? Not just for you, but even with a developer looking to be working with a trailer artist. What should they be expecting from a contractual standpoint?
I mean, for payment, I think it's pretty standard to do like 50% up front and 50% on delivery. I know some people who will just say, pay me when it's done. But I think it's good to do 50% up front and then add like, like within 30 days sort of to the contract. I'm not like, I wouldn't call myself contract expert by any stretch, because like I didn't even have like a really good one until relatively recently. So I don't know if I'm the best person to talk about with contracts, because sometimes I don't even have one, which not good on me. But I've worked with great people, so I know it's not about working with good people, because it's just about having things be clear and simple.
Yes.
So I don't think I'm the best person to talk to about contracts, but 50% up front, 50% on delivery, and agree about what the dates are, of course, what payment is, maybe number of revisions, who owns what. So, of course, the client owns the whole thing, presumably, but maybe they don't own the project files. That could be a thing that an editor might want to keep on their end and say, like, if you want revisions, come to me. But some editors might say, yeah, sure, I'll give you project files, I don't care. Maybe like if the developer is allowed to modify something that the editor sends, I could see that being something that people have differing opinions on, because I know editors who they've sent out their trailer, then it comes out and I don't know, the music's different, and then all the edits don't work anymore, and that feels awful, and they don't want to put it on their reel anymore. Yeah. Or also like maybe for me, I like to write articles and make videos, or at least I used to before I just lost all my free time. I want to know if I'm allowed to write those posts, show some behind the scenes stuff. Cool. And I'm fine waiting until like the game's release to do that. That's totally fine. I'm not going to say like, no, you must let me do behind the scenes stuff after the announce. That's unreasonable, I think.
And Derek, I guess just to wrap up on this, what would Derek from 5 years ago wish that he knew that Derek knows now,
It happened 5 years ago. COVID happened 5 years ago. I don't know. Maybe if you go back to like 10 years, I'm trying to think. Versioning never gets easier to a certain degree. It's always a pain. I don't know. Working with other people on the trailer almost always makes it better. Like, get another motion graphics person, get a sound mixer. That's the one. Everyone should have a sound mixer. Call me. I'll give you my sound mixer. Sound mix is very important. But all the projects that I've worked on where there was like motion graphics person, certainly sound mixer, and maybe someone else doing capture. I mean, it depends. But so many times I've worked on something where like, oh, I feel weird taking credit for everything in this because this person did this person did this. A lot of times those are my favorite ones. I'm like, oh my God, this came together so well. I mean, of course, I like to take all the credit for something that I basically did everything on too. But like a lot of times, just to have a trailer that is full of things that I'm not good at, that's really nice. So like I did a trailer for Slay the Spire 2 and Blighted with my friend William Eckloff.
Amazing.
He's a motion graphics guy. He's also a trailer editor too, but he does really good graphics. Those trailers, or Stray Gods, I also worked with him on the graphics for those. Amazing. Could never have done that as well as that. Trailer I made for Quadrilateral Cowboy. I did that with like Jake Rodkin from Campo Santo. At the time, he was kind of creative director on that. It was his vision, and I did the gameplay part, and I edited that together. But like his idea for the premise of that trailer was his, and we got I think Chris Remo wrote the script for that trailer, and Aaron Yvette was the voiceover for that, and then Jake also, he like for the title card of that, I think he got like an actual CRT to make like real CRT like distortion on the graphics for that, because it's like 80s cyberpunk sort of thing. So like that one, that's a really good one.
That's Derek. To finish things off, it is very important for me at Freaking Cool Indies to pay it forward. And one way I like to do that is ask each and every single one of my guests to talk about an indie game, whether it's a game, a project, a team that's just really exciting them right now that you kind of want to shout from the rooftop. So I'll pass the mic over to you to give a big shout out to one of the amazing indie devs that you would like to talk about.
I should have thought of this more in advance, so I'm just going to think of what's off the top of my head. But the developers who did A Little to the Left, Max Inferno, I met them at GDC this year. They're delightful people. They also make really good trailers for their own games. They really go the extra mile. They film themselves. They set up things in their house, and it fits their game really well. They're really well done. And actually, just it's been my observation that a lot of cozy game developers have made some pretty darn good trailers. Tiny Glade, Unpacking, Little to the Left. All three of them have they all have really good eye trace in their trailers, which if you don't know what that is, that's just keeping in mind where people are looking at in the frame of each shot of the trailer. So in those games, you have a cursor. And if the cursor moves from like here to here, there's a lot of times in those trailers where it just seamlessly goes between the shots. So cursor starts here, starts moving towards here, but when the cursor reaches this point, it cuts to the next shot, but it continues that motion. And like that is like just good attention to detail. That's something I talk about all the time. And those cozy games in particular were ones where I think when I saw them, I thought, oh, you knew the assignment. I don't think anyone else is going to notice because it's kind of an invisible like quality of life thing for trailer editing. But like you got it. I see what you did, and good job. Whereas there's like, action games who like they don't have good eye trace, but like these cozy games where you would think like wouldn't be this thing where you need to think about like, oh, Mad Max Fury Road was so easy to watch despite being so fast cut because everything's center framed. But it's like no, like Tiny Glade and Little to the Left, good eye trace. And they're also like cut really slow too. So you'd think like, oh, it's not really as necessary because this isn't Mad Max, but like it's really well done. So, and the Little to the Left folks are just on my mind because they released their last update for their game recently. But yeah, they're a good example of developers who really put a lot of effort into their trailers, and it shows.
I love it. And all very beautiful games as well, and very fun, very cozy. I loved Unpacking. I thought that was a wicked, quick little experience that you go back and you're just like, hey, I got an hour.
Watch the trailers for Unpacking. See if you can find the trailer I'm thinking about, where the cursor just goes across the screen and just seamlessly goes to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Derek, where can the people find you? Where's the best place to connect if someone either wants to hire you, or obviously you have the how to make your game trailer course? Maybe talk to the audience a little bit more about your workings.
Sure. So my website is derek-lieu.com, which a bunch of you right now have no idea how to spell any of that. So I registered gametrailereditor.com, which should forward you to there. But that's all my work, all my blog posts, which I wrote a weekly newsletter for 7 years, so you can do the math there. I have my YouTube channel. I have my TikTok. I haven't posted on it in months and months. And I have my newsletter, which again I haven't really posted regularly in a while, but there's a lot of stuff there. And yeah, I have a course that I made at howtomakeagametrailer.com, which that course covers everything that you should really think about before you start editing. So I don't talk about pacing and all that. I'm just thinking about like the groundwork, which frankly it's kind of more like a marketing course in a way. To just like analyze your game and find the outline for your trailer. It's actually, I think, more useful for video editors than game developers, because if there's a video editor out there who wants to pivot into doing game trailers, then that would really help them get up to speed. Because you already know editing, but you don't know what you need to put into a game trailer, then I think the course is a good way to do that, which of course I would say that. But because like making game trailers is different from making movie trailers, in certain fundamental ways. In a lot of ways they're the same, but there are things that are unique to game trailers, like that genre establishment at the start, that I think that it could be easy to not know if you came even from movie trailers to start making games and just like treating a game like a movie, which it's not. It's a game. Yeah. There's that, and yeah, that's kind of it. I'm on Blue Sky also. That I left Twitter a while ago for obvious reasons, so you can find me there, and yeah.
Everything will be linked in the description below, and once again, I cannot express how good Derek's blogs are. If you have any question, and like Derek said, you said it earlier in the show, but just search any question you have about game trailers and type Derek Lieu at the end, and you're basically good to go. And yeah.
Just, how much UI should I have in my trailer?
Derek Lieu.
what should the first shot of my trailer be? Any of those things that you could possibly imagine, I probably answered it.
Yeah, wicked. So again, I'll make sure all that's there. I'll make sure that the trailer brief is there. And again, listeners, please do yourself and do your editor a favor. Fill it out, spend the time, think through it, and I guarantee you you'll lead to a better product.
Also, just do the creative brief for yourself as an exercise. It's another good marketing exercise, because it just asks all those questions that are important to knowing what your game is. Also, I do consulting too. I often don't mention that. So if you have a trailer that you can't afford, or if you have a trailer project that you can't afford to hire out, and you just want someone to look at it and tell you what's bad about it, then you can hire me.
So again, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to chat with myself, chat with the audience, and it is official. I haven't gotten it yet. I got to get a little gavel, but here you go, Derek. You are officially a freaking cool indie. So with that, thank you again, and to our listeners out there, thank you for hanging out with us, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks for stopping by.
All right, thanks.